Hello, you are listening to the Divorce University online podcast with your hosts, Thomas and Tammy Ferreira.
Hi, I'm Tammy.
And I'm Thomas.
And today we are talking about child custody declarations. Wow. Are you trying to jump in on me already?
No, I was trying to do things at the same time. I thought that would be funny.
Like Jinx, you owe me a Coke type
Like
thing?
that kind of thing. So
usually when we talk about this, you're always talking about how to write them and how, what you should say. And I think today you're going to kind of take it more from the approach of the train wrecks not to do. The train wrecks that you see so many of.
Well, it's not so much that as I think what people do is they want to be heard. This is a function of, I want people to know what I'm going through. I want the judge and the court reporter and the clerk and everybody in the audience to know what a jerk he is. Truly.
Or she. Yeah, whichever.
Yeah, I should have said she
since you're the guy.
Yeah, and it comes under this fallacy that the judge, that what's really at issue in your child custody case is who's the better parent.
Right. And this is a very common misconception.
And who's the biggest jerk.
Right.
And that can cause you to write a declaration that's ineffective.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it feels good.
Right.
It feels great to point out all their flaws.
Right.
But it doesn't get you where you want to go ultimately,
right.
Which is you want to win your case, right?
Right. It's like, do you want to feel good in the moment, or do you want to win your case in the long run?
Right, like that. And what you have to do anytime you're writing for the court, and I've taken so many CLEs on this, continuing education courses, and in law school, and they always emphasize this, is know your audience.
Yeah.
Know your audience and think about what it is. If let's say that you're the family law judge and you're sitting up there on the days. I heard somebody pronounce it Dais or something like that. So apparently I'm pronouncing it wrong, but you're up there on your bench. And
well, I think you should look that up for next time. We need to know what the correct pronunciation is.
Yeah, we were always pronouncing things correctly here on the Divorce University Online podcast.
Well, we have our word of the day, and one of our word of the days was days. And if you missed that episode, days is, if we're pronouncing it correctly, I don't know, we'll look that up for you, but that is...
Or the dice.
The raised...
And it's spelled D-A-I-S.
The raised place where the judge sits in the courtroom. So.
Right. They put them up there so that you feel small.
Yes, so that you feel.
They look really big from where you're sitting, and you feel really small from where you're sitting.
That's to keep all those jerky attorneys in check.
That's it. Now we're getting a little off the beaten path here, but the idea is you want to know, put yourself in that judge's position. When they have 8, 10, 12 hearings on a morning calendar,
right,
and every one of those people is trying to convince you that the other person is a lousy parent,
right,
and the thing is, what is your objective? I mean, ideally, I would say as a judge, the number one thing you want is for them to not be in your courtroom. They don't want to see them again. You want to create an order that's going to kind of stand the test of time, that's going to last. And so what you're trying to do is, number one, you want these parties to get along. You want them to cooperate.
Right.
And nobody does.
I know.
But the judges just, oh, please, somebody just get along. Yeah. For the sake of your kids. You both love your kids. Get along.
Well, some people cooperate, but those people are not in the courtroom.
That's right.
I mean, everybody that the judge is seeing are people that are not cooperating.
Right. So they want you to cooperate, and they also want you to promote. And this is where everybody gets it backwards, but they want you to promote the other parent to the children. They want to see that you're showing Junior that mom is a good person who is to be respected.
Right.
or dad is a good person to be respected,
Right.
not a jerk. And I would say time after time, you see these declarations, all they say is, I don't respect this person, I hate this person, and I would do anything I could to wrest these poor children out of the grasp of that person.
Yeah, I mean, they don't say that directly. That's not what the declarations directly say.
No, it's indirect.
Right, but by
with-
the way that they've written their declaration, that's the message that they're conveying to the judge, which is the exact opposite message of what creates a winning situation.
Right. Like this morning, I argued a case in which the mother in this case was trying to get custody, and she said something on the order of, well, his family calls our 5-year-old fat. You know, he's criticizing the child for being fat. And what my client told me is, you know, in their culture, in their kind of Hispanic culture, the term gorda or gordita, which means fat or chubby, is a term of endearment that is frequently used towards children. So this is number one, a misinterpretation. But number two, it's nitpicky.
Right.
Because what it says is, I'm sitting here trying to micromanage how he raises the child.
Right.
And that's not what they're looking for.
Right.
They're looking for somebody who's going to be tolerant and patient and supportive of that other parent, not nitpicky, not, he comes over and sometimes their shirt's on backwards.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing I hear, and because I have a group coaching program for women, and I do a lot of one-on-one coaching as well. And so the thing that I hear over and over is, the judge needs to know. He needs to know.
Yeah, he's got to know this.
Because they think if he knows this long sordid history of all the things that you think the other parent has done wrong, that he's suddenly going to just side with you.
Yeah, it's like the client says, let me start from the beginning.
Yeah,
No,
and you're like,
no.
no, please don't start from the beginning. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
A lot of the mistakes people make are just because they don't understand the strategy, because the strategy seems counterintuitive.
Yeah, it seems upside down.
Right.
It's like, if in some cases, saying something like, and again, I'll cite the one that I had this morning. My client was generous, and I really like this client, and I think he's a good father.
Right.
And he's a persuasive co-parent because he's sitting there trying to solve problems.
Right.
He's saying,
Trying to think of ways where he can increase the child's time with mom.
right. Like, for example, he volunteered, and this is a case where mom is living half a continent away. And he suggests, well, if mom, if she needs more time, I think maybe we should give mom half of summers, which, I wasn't even expecting him to make that concession. But that makes the court happy.
Right, because then the court goes, wow, we're going to give this person the vast majority of the parenting time because they're not going to be stingy with the other parent.
Right.
They're going to make sure the child has access to both. And if you're giving the parent that's stingier with time most of the time, then that other parent will probably eventually fade out of the child's life, which is what the court's worried about.
Yeah. The court's not really worried about little picayune things.
Yeah.
So what you want to get away from, and Tammy was laughing about this because it's in my notes, I wrote, most child custody declarations are a laundry list of the other person's faults.
It's true.
And
I have a laundry list of your faults too. I just don't have to put them in a court declaration.
no, I you have them memorized.
I do at this point.
So don't eat your soup with a fork. Oh, it's ridiculous that
I have
the
to add
soup
that.
drips
I have
through.
to add that. I didn't have that on my list. Now I got another one to add. Yeah, but
it's a very hearty soup.
well, and it's hard when you feel like there are all these concerns, and a lot of people think that if they just throw all of them at the court, that the volume of them will get them what they want.
Right.
But what they don't understand is actually a more effective strategy is to go through and, choose the things that are things the court would be concerned about.
Right.
Not like trying to just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks.
Right. Like things like he lets the kids eat candy before dinner.
Why is it always he that lets the kids eat candy before dinner? That's what I want to know.
Because
She
man
would
are pigs.
she would never do that. It's like your kid comes in. Can I have a third cookie? No, you can't.
Yeah.
I mean, the poor kid's skinny as a rail. Like it's no issue like that from that perspective.
Right.
But it's just like that's really not good for you. No, you can't do that just because you can get away with it.
Right.
But
I mean, unless it's really bad, you can't just feed children candy.
right.
Right.
If they're living on a diet of candy and
So-
soda, you might have a
There's a point. Yeah, there's a point at which nutrition reaches the level of child abuse.
Right.
But 99.999% of parents are not there.
right.
And so if you disagree with their culinary choices, that's really not an issue that the court is going to be concerned about.
Yeah, or we had one time we had a case where the father was kind of the more structured, disciplined one, and mom was sort of more free spirited. And so dad had a very specific routine at his home around bedtime. They would have dinner and they would brush their teeth and then they would shower. And the little girl had long hair, and so she would brush her hair out smoothly every night. And I think like something like at least 100 strokes, or like he had a specific thing. And one of his issues was he wanted mom to have the same routine at her home.
The same number of strokes and everything.
That's right. Same number of hairbrush. It's true. That's true. You were there, But it's like, that's totally unrealistic. You're not going to have that level of micromanagement of the other parent's household. You just don't get that. Everybody doesn't parent the same.
Or house rules. I mean, how on earth can you allow a child to go outside and play when they haven't finished their homework?
Right.
And right, I think that's probably a good policy to make them do their homework first, but it's not child abuse.
Right.
It's not neglect. It's not going to endanger them. It's not going to ruin their minds and cause them to have spina bifida. It's just not going to do it.
Well, I also had a coaching client recently who they pretty much have 50-50. She might have a hair more time, but it's pretty close to a 50-50. And they have one child who very, very good student, excellent student, still in elementary school, but pretty much making A's and B's. And the child brought home a C on one test that fell on mom's week. And dad was like, well, maybe I need to come get her on your days and do her homework with her and help her study because you're clearly failing at.
So the declaration would say, mom clearly doesn't make education a priority.
Right.
Because she's too busy running around, letting them run around outside.
Yeah.
Where they could get pneumonia, for heaven's sake.
Right. Taking her to an extracurricular activity, stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we did. We had that one case where dad's really rigid and he just, you got to do your homework and you got to do the transition exactly on time.
Right.
Probably a former Marine or something, but it just and mom, the woman that he married and then divorced is this free spirit.
But that's always how it works, right? That's always how it works because opposites attract.
Right.
So you end up with this really rigid person that not to fault the rigid person or if they're a Marine or whatever.
No, because Tammy's the rigid
I'm
person.
the rigid one, so I totally
and I'm
get
the
it.
free spirit.
That's right. That's right.
I was raised by hippies.
Yes.
Yes.
It's like we go to bed and I go, it's 11 o'clock. Your son isn't home. Do you know where he is? And he's like, I don't know. It's like, probably you should know that before, you know. But yeah, you're a little more loose.
It's like my
with
teenage kids, they go out and they go out with their friends. Which friends are he going with? I don't know. Where are they going to? I don't know. When are they going to be home? I don't know. Well, did you ask them anything?
Yeah, this is the conversation.
You moron!
This is the conversation between me and Thomas, what he's relaying. And then my kids come into the house, like, you know, my older son has been visiting, and it's like, you would have killed us. You wouldn't have. And I'm like, yeah, you're right, because I'm your mother. Like, I'm not their mother. I only have so much control. But
right. No, I've learned.
Yeah. So the other day he comes and brings your 17-year-old in, and you say to me, okay, he wants to go somewhere. What do you need to know? And then we go through the questions of whose house are you going to? Where's that located? How are you getting there? Who's driving? What time? How long are you going to be there? Are they going to serve food? Are you going to need to eat?
Are there going to be drugs and alcohol?
Yes. To which he always answers yes, because he's learned that question.
But, yeah, because he thinks that's funny.
Yes, he does. Because he's like you.
Yeah. So he went to a bonfire yesterday, and I said, well, so how many kegs are they going to have? I just need to know.
He said just one or two. But he's
a good boy.
Yeah, there was no alcohol involved, and we picked him up after the fact, so we knew. But the thing is that these types of little parenting disagreements that happen, I mean, they happen in every situation. They happen whether it's married parents of the child. I used to have disagreements with my ex-husband over parenting issues of the two boys that I have. You know, Thomas and I.
You got to relax.
As one parent and step parent of the
other one. You
got
to relax, Tammy. You got to chill out.
We have disagreements. You know, you're going to have disagreement with your co-parents, whatever. And so
he's 18. He can get close to the pool. He's not going to drown.
So, I mean, at this, the thing that happens though at this stage is that, you know, people sort of want to, like Thomas said, put all these things out there that are sort of not really true concerns about the child's safety and welfare.
Right.
Which is what the court wants to know, because absent issues of safety and welfare, they want the child as much as possible to have equal access to both parents.
Right.
You know, so their real question is there something that's really concerned for their safety and welfare? And, you know, I go through this a lot with my clients. They, you know, a lot of them are dealing with, you know, especially my women's coaching group, it's focused around, you know, narcissistic behaviors and things. And so a lot of people are dealing with that, and they, you know, they have gone through a lot of verbal and emotional abuse. And I always say the system is set up pretty well. If you have a physical abuse situation, the court system is really equipped to handle that. I think the verbal and emotional abuse is a little bit more difficult, and it's a grayer area. So a lot of times the things that are happening that we feel like are really bad for the children are verbal and emotional abuse type things. And the court's not really, for the court, that doesn't override the need for the parent. Right. The need for the child to have a relationship with that parent.
Yeah, the court is very concerned about the child having a relationship with both parents.
Right.
So to the extent that you come across as not wanting that or being opposed to that other parent, it's normal to want to do that, but it gives the court the impression that you don't support their relationship.
Yeah. And in the extreme, we have seen situations where moms in particular that had pretty much full custody or primary custody, the court began to view mom as such a hindrance to dad's relationship with the kids that we've seen a couple situations lately where the court just totally flipped it on its head and said, these children need to go live with dad.
Right. Yeah.
You know, because the only way that we're going to be able to pull mom out of the picture and actually foster a relationship between dad and the kids is to put them with dad full time for a period of time.
Yeah.
You know, so in extreme cases, you can, I mean, whether you're mom or dad, whichever side of that situation you're on, But, if you're the parent that's opposing the other parent in very extreme situations, if the court starts to label you as that, you're going to have a problem.
Right. Yeah. I had a case, last year, at the end of last year, where this fella was basically, he was hyper concerned about his kids. One of these guys that wants his preschooler to be ready to do differential calculus. And you get those people.
Right.
It's like they're crazy on the education, and everything has to be on a timetable. And I remember one of the things that we were arguing about was this incident where he went to the daycare to demand that he have the sign-in sheets or what have you, and made a big deal and made a big scene at the daycare because he thought he was going to prove that mom was not bringing the kids to daycare, or was lying, or she was lying, and I can prove it. What I told him is, look, that is not a winning issue for you in this case.
Right.
Because the court is concerned about whether you're going to support frequent and continuing contact with mom.
Right.
They're not, and the conflict at the daycare really makes you look bad.
And I had something similar. I had a mom that went in and was demanding the daycare sign-in sheets. And I said the same. It was for different reasons.
Right.
But I said the same thing. I said, look, here's the problem. You're causing a scene at the daycare, which causes the daycare people, who are independent third parties who could potentially advocate for you or write a declaration or do something down the road if you needed it. And you're making enemies of them over an issue that you've told yourself in your head is going to get you leverage with the court, but in reality, it's not.
Right.
So you're in there creating all this conflict with the daycare when it's not even going to help your case.
Right.
So you have to be real careful about following your emotions and flying off on these tangents, which frankly is what all of this comes from. Right. All of the laundry list of the other parent, all of the different, most of that comes from our own emotions. And so the most important part of this is to be able to step back from your emotions and to be able to logically figure out, okay, what does the court want from me and what doesn't the court want from me? Right.
And a lot of times our clients mistake this for pulling your punches.
Right.
Like I tell people, because I wrote this declaration on how to do child custody. In San Diego, we have binding child custody mediation, which means that if you don't reach an agreement in the mediation session, the counselor makes a recommendation to the court, which carries a lot of weight in how the court does custody and visitation.
You just to clarify, you wrote an ebook. You didn't write a declaration. You said
sorry.
I wrote a declaration.
Oh yeah, I wrote.
But you meant you wrote an ebook,
yeah.
Like helping people figure out how to prepare for this appointment.
Right, and sometimes people mistake that for pulling your punches,
right.
And that's not what I'm suggesting.
Right.
I'm not. Number one, if you have a legitimate safety concern, like if mom is a drug addict or is falling asleep on the couch and the kids are going out into the street while she's passed out on the couch, or there's driving drunk with kids in the car is something we frequently see,
right.
Or nutrition that reaches the level of really having a very powerful effect on the kid's health.
Right.
There's a lot of things that child welfare would get involved with,
right.
are things that you definitely want to emphasize,
right.
And you want to express those as what I call the child-focused concerns.
Right.
I know it's important for dad to have a relationship with this child, but I'm really concerned about his drinking around the child. I frequently come to the exchanges and he's visibly drunk. He's slurring his words and he's staggering. And, as a parent, I'm concerned about that.
Right. So it's knowing what things to bring up and how to present them.
Right.
It's not about, like Thomas said, like pulling your punches and not saying anything about things you're truly concerned about. It's about not nitpicking about things that you don't get to control just by the sheer fact of that you're not with the other parent anymore.
Yeah, we're not
There's
sweating
just
the small
certain
stuff.
things that you have to relinquish that you don't get control of anymore.
Yeah.
Like the child's bedtime in the other world. You don't get control over that.
Even Tammy is not a perfect parent. She's close. She's as close as they come. But not perfect. We have her son sitting over here. He's playing a video game. He's completely checked out. You see what she allowed him to see. The problem is she allowed him to play video games, and now all he does is play video games. He thinks he's pretending to produce our podcast.
You're digressing. He's an adult. He can play.
He's wearing headphones. He can hear me.
He can play a video game if he wants to. But video games were something that we argued about when my kids lived at home, because you had a different, philosophy or a different value around that than I do, and your kids don't. We don't have a video game system for them, and they're 17.
Right,
18.
so they go over to their friend's house.
That's right. They take it out of here. I should have done that. You're the one that had the right.
And you don't
idea.
have to hear the rat-tat-tat.
But back to the we digressed a little bit, but back to the the laundry list and all the different things. It's just about figuring out what are the correct things that the court is going to have concern about, and what things do they not. Because if everything you're putting forward is just all these little nitpicky concerns, and you don't have anything really that's really safety or welfare related, then you're losing credibility. You're hurting yourself.
Right.
And that's really what we see happen to a lot of people. I had somebody recently who, you were talking about family court services and preparing for that, and here in California, and I had somebody who was on her third or fourth trip, and it had not gone well the previous 2 times, and her kids, under 5, so still pretty little, but it had not gone well. And, through coaching, finally this time it actually went well. But it's funny because she came out of it feeling kind of frustrated because
like she'd lost
because there wasn't anything that was like, here's all, they told all the things that he said about her,
right?
But then there was nothing that she really said about him.
Yeah.
And so her thought was, well, now there's all these negative things about me, and there's nothing about him. And I said, yeah, but all those negative things are only coming from him.
Right.
The mediator didn't write that. This is just his laundry list,
right? Where
you're concerned, which doesn't make him look good, in my opinion. Right. But people go, well, what if, or what if the judge doesn't, or what if, I'm like, these judges read how many reports a day do they read? I mean, they probably read at least 5 to 10 reports all day, every day, family law judges.
Right. And you know what? The judge, this is a point I thought of after I'd written it. That's why it's at the bottom of my notes. But where's the information coming from? Okay, you're complaining about their parenting, but you're separated, you're divorced. So you're not in their world. So where's the information coming from?
Right. The kids most of the time.
Most of the time it's the kids, yeah. And you have to be very careful about this, because the court is looking for who's pumping the kids for information.
Right.
And they don't like that.
Right. And you have to understand, too, that especially for children under the age of 10 particularly, they'll have one little kernel of something that's stuck in their head. Yeah. But the context of that conversation is gone. Like the Gordita thing. Before. Right, like Gordita, right.
It's like, Uncle Joe, who sometimes babysits for Dad when he's at work, he calls me fat, and I have no doubt that the only way that Mom found out about this was that the child said something, and so I called my client. Are you and your relatives calling her fat? That's not good.
Right.
And his response was, no. Right. No, we call her, it's a term of endearment. It's a term of, right. Well, that's different. Right. But things get twisted around like that. So you got to be very careful when you ask the children. Kind of a good way to summarize this topic is to look at the court and make your 3 bullet points, things that the court's really concerned about. So bullet point number 1 is safety.
Right.
And really that's around what would a child welfare officer or child protective services, whatever you want.
Right. What would they have a problem with?
What would they have a problem
Right.
with? Secondly, is this person, parental alienation is a hot button right now.
Right.
It's a big topic. And what the court is looking for there is, does this person speak in a supportive way about the other parent
Right.
when there's nobody but the kids listening?
Right.
And so if you vomit this laundry list of the other person's fault, eventually the court's going to start thinking, what is this person saying when I'm not there?
Right.
When I'm not there to adjudicate? Or if you have the nasty text messages, what is this person saying to the kids?
Right.
So they're concerned about that. And finally, the court says, Rodney King, can't we just get along?
Right.
Really? Can't we get along? They want you to get along. Why? Because they've read hundreds of articles. I almost said thousands. I'm exaggerating. But they've read many articles about the effect of parental conflict on children.
Right. Right. Articles and studies and continuing education and all of the literature says the number one most damaging thing for children post-divorce is conflict.
Right. So
is conflict between the parents.
So what are you doing? This is a good thing to put in your declaration. What are you doing to make things better?
Right. Right. And that's one of the things that I always have clients talk about when they go to, if they, like you said, in California, we have family court services as the child custody arm here. Not all states, call it that or have that specific thing. Some states, the judge just decides. But when I have clients going in, like if it's somebody that I've been working with that I'm coaching, then I'll have them say, I'm working with a co-parenting coach.
Yeah.
Then that looks very favorable.
Right.
To the court of like, oh, you're actually taking some kind of action to try to stop this conflict. Right. You're actually taking some proactive step instead of just standing back and blaming the other person for all the conflict.
There you go.
Yeah. And that's
so you
just
got
huge.
it? Yeah.
Take responsibility.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's really the moral of the story. So, okay. So we hope that this has been helpful as always to kind of give you some perspective on, how the court views this. If you are watching us on YouTube, don't forget to hit like on this video and subscribe to our channel. So
don't hit it too hard though, you'll break your device.
So you'll get to see more videos related to these topics as they come out. If you are listening to the full episode of the podcast, please don't forget to, again, like and subscribe so that you get notifications as new episodes are released
I get those.
each week. You do?
Yeah, I get the
That's great. And you get to listen to us. How fun.
That's how I know the podcast has gone out.
All right. So thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Divorce University online podcast with your hosts, Thomas and Tammy Ferreira. For more information, visit www.divorceuniversityonline.com.